there are two things that I would like to highlight. One is in relation to the legal framework, why it is necessary, and then the ethical aspect of it. Whether it is UNESCO, whether it is UAI law as such, the act as such, or concerns that are generally there. One of the stalwarts who made it really relevant, Elon Musk was also very concerned with respect to the use of AI, the unburdened use of AI. But we must accept and acknowledge the fact that technology is something that law cannot, what do you call, reigning. What the law can do is only catch up. And one major concern with respect to the legal framework is that we do not really want to make technology not happen. So, though the concern is there across the world in relation to how AI might move ahead in future, because not everybody may be really constrained by any ethical considerations. Commerce is a very great incentive to to not heed to any ethical considerations, because if you are the first one in time in relation to discovering something or inventing a new application, there is a possibility of making a profit out of it. So research into AI, whether we like it or not, whether any government tries to curb it or not, is going to, it's an inexorable process. It's not going to be stopped at all. But we also had last week there was this discussion in relation to how the bigs in the context of software industry, whether it is Google or Microsoft, how they had refrained from moving ahead with face recognition. The Meta also face recognition softwares that they had developed, and how they were gobbling up companies which were at the forefront and then killing it with respect to developing it further, because there is an immense potential which might result in it's a two-way street. You can go in one way and you can trigger a state reaction which might shut your entire business. So it's a question of keeping the golden goose alive and shutting out and appearing to be ethical in certain areas which it's more profitable in the long run. So that is one aspect of it. So ethical considerations are a real concern, and ethics in the context of educational sphere is that it's just the catch them young philosophy, so far as I am concerned. 13, as UNESCO stated, is the time when most students or the child is able to discern clearly between what is right and what is wrong, especially the moral aspect of it, the ethical considerations part of it. So if that moral awareness is instilled with respect to what is accepted behavior from the society, from the person who is a member of the society, and what is not, then that is going to remain there with that person for life. So we are trying to catch them in. We are trying to train our children with respect to the ethical codes, the moral standards that are expected. And from that perspective, schooling and, of course, the higher education platforms all play a very important role. But that is the ethical side. From the educationalist perspective, technology is something that we need to adapt and use. No, I really am surprised with Ramesh sir saying that educational field might be the last area where AI will be, not AI, but technology is generally adopted. I would suggest that, okay, from the perspective of the teacher, probably yes. But from the perspective of the subject, the students, they adapt early. So it's probably a generation kind of a thing also. Our inability to learn things as we grow older and staying in our comfort zones is something that is there. And Dev sir was also mentioning this particular, expressing that statement that said AI is not going to replace a teacher, as if that is, you don't want the teaching community to come against AI. So from the entrepreneur's perspective also, you don't want to antagonize the teaching community as such. But what I understand is that AI is going to replace the teacher, but not in the way that the teachers, no, there was a time when typists were all concerned with respect to the computers replacing them. And stenographers were eventually replaced, but then it's giving a better opportunity. We are adapting to the technology. If we are able to adapt, one generation later, we might be actually using AI tools for the purpose of enhanced teaching processes. But then there are two things over there. One is the enabling environment. That is where the legal framework becomes important. So how do I test a person without understanding the uniqueness of that particular individual? How do I ensure that there is academic integrity in the entire process? So AI tool is actually going to be a helpful tool for a teacher. But then the problem is what Preetha was saying in the context of what is under the hood. What is that behind the black box? What is the algorithm that is going behind this particular filtration process or the learning processes as such? That is where both ethics as well as the legal framework must work together. One, for example, we need to have open source platforms so that we understand what exactly is the algorithmic logic, because this is the most ultimately what matters is the man behind the machine who is encoding it and what is the purpose of that code. Unless, again, Preetha was mentioning this particular aspect of the literacy part, unless we are able right from our childhood, if we are imparted that AI education, coding education, then only we will be in a position to actually understand what the problem is. So it is not enough that things are made transparent, but we also must ensure that there is a literate population, literate enough to understand what this technology is all about. And that means catching, again, starting from the school curriculum itself. So we need to create, through a legal intervention, we need to create an environment which facilitates use of AI, which tackles the non-problems of AI and be in a position to be technology neutral also. So from the legal perspective, we can't stop the technology. The most that can happen is to slow it down so that we understand the repercussions before things go out of hand. It's just like, even in scientific research, you have genomic research happening. Stem cell research is there. Countries have come out with laws which prevent human embryo cloning and all those things. But if you are rich enough, you can create a private laboratory and you can hire the best brains to do the same thing. And the advantage, again, the first mover advantage is always there. So in technology also the same thing is there. Every company that is worth its salt is going to work towards creating a enabling environment which gives them the upper hand. So from the legal perspective, what we can do is prescribe certain unethical activities, fix responsibility, and hope for the best. And then, as lawyers always do, there is money to be made, both helping the person who is violating the law as well as for helping the society as such to uphold the law. So from that perspective, law is a requirement. Now, from the perspective of the NEP 2020, we have a policy which encourages use of artificial intelligence both in the teaching process as well as in the learning process. So around 8 different areas you find in an NEP which specifically mentions artificial intelligence as something that is to be favored. So the policy is there. Now what we require is a legal framework which enables educational institutes to use this AI without singeing themselves. One, for example, if I'm a private institution, I'm going to use Aadhaar for the purpose of validating the student. Is the law enabling me to use it? Does the law allow me to use biometric information? Does it allow me to store the data in relation to individualizing the course content and favoring the slow learners to catch up or the fast learners to progress as they wish? Does the law, as of now, does the individual data protection policies and the statute as such, does it actually favor storing of this data? What are the repercussions? Because from the ecosystem point of view, any entrepreneur, before putting money in, should know what the law is. Without certainty in relation to law, what happens is that you go in a particular manner, you develop a particular product, and then the law says that it cannot be sold in the market, means your entire effort is wasted. So from the entrepreneur's point of view, from the institution's point of view, you don't want to antagonize the legal framework as such. So that the legal system has to be very proactive and come up with a law as early as possible. Right now, we don't have a clear-cut legal framework in place, and that is an imperative. And my suggestion would be in this particular context that education happens to be in the concurrent list. That means both the union as well as the states can create legislative frameworks. If we look at Kerala, which is very proactive in relation to responding to the software requirements, we created an open source kind of a policy, but then we don't really have an ecosystem which favors the use of open software in the way it should have been when the government is backing the policy. So it creates problems when you don't have solutions. and you are forced to depend upon you get vendor locked into certain kinds of softwares, which might be very responsive, which might be very useful, but then once you get vendor locked, your ability to transfer the data, to use it on your own, for interoperability, the data transparency as such, all these things are problems for the education institution, and it becomes a legacy issue also when the technology changes or the company breaks up and closes shop. So these are all matters which is to be considered when the legal framework is created. So it's better for the union government to come out with the parliament to come out with a legislation which sets standards, because we don't require multiple standards which become interoperable, which prohibits interoperability. So that is one particular area. So policy is there, but we don't have a legislative backing in relation to how we need to use that AI, and that is something that is required. Then the ethical consideration, the use of AI in the context of, say, ChatGPT, for example, because everybody is after this, the generative AI, the language processing programs as such. What I can say is that I encourage, one of the first things that I did when ChatGPT, the login accounts was opened up, was to ask my students to do it. But then it was PG students. So ask them to test it, submit an assignment using ChatGPT, find whether everybody's answer is the same, because each person is going to put in their own query as such in order to get a response. And then the only feasible solution in relation to proactively dealing with the use of ChatGPT for assignments is either to create an assignment where no ChatGPT is going to be helpful for the student, or to go for a Viva, where what we are testing, because it's a difference in evaluation method that can actually yield. If you're going to just somebody is going to cut and paste something or use a generative text and then submit the assignment, and we are going to value the assignment on the face of it, then there is no evaluation. So what we should be doing is evaluate the person and the person's understanding of that technology, and refer to whatever. It's like giving an open book exam. In an open book exam, we are not actually looking into what is written over there, but the way it is written, the presentation, the logic, and the sources that are searched for. So we need to revisit the evaluation standards in relation to. So ethical aspect of it is one, of course, we must know. We must be very open for technology to be the tool that students can and are skilled to use. We must facilitate it. Second, we must understand the limitations with respect to our current evaluation methods, and then correspondingly reorganize and revisit how we do the evaluation processes. So law, for the purpose of ensuring standards, for the purpose of ensuring consistency and certainty with respect to what responses we can do. Ethics, for the purpose of ensuring that some things which are not really conducive for society gets ingrained in every person by virtue of our teaching process, so that you can't put a policeman behind everybody and hope for law and order. What we can is make everybody a policeman, in the sense of training that person to act in a responsible manner. So from that perspective, ethics becomes an important parameter.